And welcome to the Home Turn YouTube channel. I hope everyone that's tuning in today is having a great day and has had a brilliant Cheltenham Festival. Today's video, as probably seen in the title, is going to be our Cheltenham recap video. So we're going to be looking at all 4 days of the action over the last week, and obviously summarising what's gone on, maybe looking towards the future in regards to next season or a little bit down the line in this season, for some of our Cheltenham winners or ones that have run really well. Um, I'm shooting this on initially shooting these videos on the Friday just before Gold Cup Day kicks off. So we're going to run through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday today, and then obviously I'll record the last bit for Friday and tomorrow just to save us a bit of time. So you may see an outfit change later on in the video if you stick around for that. But if you do like the content, please do like and subscribe to the channel. It does really help. Um, I'm not just going to stop over once Cheltenham is done. I was going to look towards Aintree soon and the flat season as well. That's only just around the corner with some of the classics coming up as well. So we'll definitely keep the content flowing, even after the festival has died down. But again, we're going to, as well, I will let you know, I'm going to put up some way too early Cheltenham tips for 2025 at the end of the video. So hopefully we'll see how well they get on in 12 months' time. But yes, without further ado, we'll crack on straight away with the action on the Tuesday, which I was actually there, lucky enough, at Cheltenham at Prethbury Park to watch. Had a nice touch on Slater at 7-1 and the start, so that really helped us out. And I think that was an interesting Supreme. Obviously, it's a very competitive race, unlike some of the races, unfortunately, on the Tuesday and probably the Wednesday of the meeting. The Supreme kicked it off in really good fashion. It was obviously a very competitive betting heat and a very competitive race overall. Now, I think the winner, Slater, was clearly a stayer. Was kind of done for toe, you'd think, towards the last. I didn't put in a great jump at the last. It wasn't awful. He just got out jumped by Mystical Power at the last, and then Mystical Power went about a length clear of the run-in. Just I think purely from a speed perspective, because obviously Mystical Power had to make up quite a lot of ground as well, coming from a bit further back in the field, and then just got outstayed up the hill. I think Slay still is an out-and-out stayer. Chased it in the making. I think Rob came out yesterday and said, obviously after Tipu's win in the Stayers Hurdle. Team will be staying over hurdles. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Irish Point, which we're going to come on to in a minute. But I think they were basically suggesting that Slate Steel would be it'd be stupid of them to run him in the champion hurdle, or to campaign him as a champion hurdle horse with the likes of Constitution Hill, Lossiemouth, and State Man in that division. They're probably going to move him to chasing. Now that does open the door. I mean, you'd think he's a staying chaser in the making, so that's I would suggest he's had the class to win a Supreme. You'd be thinking Turner's, maybe Brown Advisory, next year. Probably I'd lean towards the Turners just because he does have enough speed to win over 2 miles, but clearly wants a trip as well in time. And I think he could be a really smart type for the De Bromhead Yard and for Rob Court. I really like the way he did it, and clearly doesn't mind Cheltenham at all. I think he could be a really interesting chaser in the making. I think he jumps well enough as well to do. He made a nice enough shape over his hurdle to suggest that he would translate that over fences, and I think he could be really interesting. Obviously, Mystical Power on a really good race for Willie Munn's. I think just got done for staying ability really up the hill. They pulled pretty far clear of the rest. Obviously, Firefox was in the third. I think about 3.5 lengths behind Mystical Power. Now that went really well, actually. Obviously, Gordon Elliott and Jack Kennedy were having a bit of a crossbar meeting so far. Hopefully that changes on Friday. If you've seen some of my tips, but I think he ran really well. He stayed on nicely. I think he pecked on. He missed one. I think an important hurdle, maybe 3 or 4 out, which hampered his chances a little bit. But he's travelling really strongly into the bend, and then just had to weave his way through quite a lot of traffic. He just didn't really get a massive run in the race, I would say. So I think Firefox for me is the eye catcher you could take out of the remaining pack. I think he's going to be an interesting staying chaser well in the future. I'd say Mystical Power would probably stay over 2 miles. Whether they look to campaign him as a chaser or remain over hurdles, I guess you'd have to wait and see, just because of the strength and depth in that 2 mile division that Willie Mullins does have over hurdles. I wouldn't say he's a massive stayer. I think he'd have to keep over 2 miles, whether he goes to the Arkle or not. Obviously, out of Galileo, there's always that doubt whether he's a necessarily will relish a fence, I'd say. But I think Mystical Power is a big question mark here, whether he would go over fences or remain over hurdles. I think Firefox and Slate Steel were definitely staying chasers in the making. Looking a bit further back into the race, obviously Asian Master ran a really big race as well. It'd be interesting to see where they go from there with him, same by the Costellos. And Mr. Giff, I thought, ran pretty admirably. I think was a big market move for him. He was kind of everyone's sort of under the radar pick for the race. Just probably was a little bit inexperienced to compete at a top level. Obviously, the British disappointed in his tail. The name wasn't never going to like the ground, so that was our kind of one to watch out the window. As soon as it went soft, he wasn't really going to have a chance. I respect him for running, and CGI could rep, and it was like many Nick Henderson horses over the last couple of days pulled up. So interesting to see where they go from there. But it was good to get that one on the board when I was there in the day. So I think for me, Slade Steel and Firefox would be the ones to take out of the race long term. I do think Mystical Power will be interesting, but it's just because Willie Mullins is such a bottleneck in that Team R division. It'd be interesting to see where he goes. I could imagine he probably goes to the Arkle, Slade Steel, or Firefox. I'd be interested in the Turners or the Browns. But obviously, that's for time. Time will really tell on that. It's hard to kind of get a better picture of that until you see them over a fence, really, which is only going to be in the next 6 months' time. You say. And then obviously we move on to the Arkle, which is after that. We had JPR1 in our anti-post slip. I think the ground again was not ideal. He has one on heavy ground, but I think he would have wanted a better surface if he'd seen a better effect. He came seventh. Did finish in the end, which is obviously ideal, which is better than nothing. But he was up with the pace. I just don't think he quite had the class to stay with Gaelic Warrior or under 50 really. He may not just quite be to that grade one level, obviously overall when the Irish come into play as well. But he ran a fairly admirable race. We just got done, I think, a little bit by the ground and maybe just not being quite to that level, unfortunately. Gaelic Warrior proved me wrong. I thought he was going to run an absolute stinker in this, going right-handed. I think the hood really helped him. He jumped a little bit out of his right, but not a lot. And jumped in the main a whole lot better over 2 miles, maybe just a stronger travelling. But he ran strong enough in the at the ARFs. It's a strange one. He just clearly come on a lot, and it's a great training performance by Willie Mullins. He surprised me, and realistically speaking, he was the class angler in the race. It's just whether he could do it over that trip and do it right handed, and he proved his doubt was wrong on myself and opens the door up now for potentially a champion chase campaign next season. Whether they'll do that with El Fabiolo, I probably imagine they said they'd like to stick him at 2 miles for now. Whether that hampers or um, changes his course for next year, which was I think was going to be revolved around the King George. I guess that will remain to be seen. He'd be interesting in a champion chase because as we saw, Fabiolo's jumping can be a bit sketchy sometimes, as I'd already said. It's a shame that John Bon wasn't in there, but John Bon's jumping again wasn't amazing. Um, he could be an interesting player in that next year if they do campaign him over 2 miles. So he doesn't mind going right-handed now, clearly with the hood. And I think he's of interest. Really, I wouldn't say there's massive amounts to take away from the race apart from that. I think Kenneth Thompson ran a decent race. So did Founder 50. It's just, I don't think they were ever towards the level of Gaelic Warrior. I think Gaelic Warrior is a bona fide superstar Grade One horse now, especially that he's proven it to go round right-handed in a Grade One company. I think he's going to be really interesting in Open Chase Company next season. I would be interested in him in a King George as well. I know Leslie France is in there, but I think Gaelic Warrior is an absolute machine. It's just whether they go up for 3 miles at Campton or they stick him over two for the time being. And I think because that's going to be a Boxing Day, it might become a bit too soon. You may only have one or two runs before then in Open Company, probably one run before then in Open Company if he was to go. And considering Mullins said they're going to keep him at 2 miles, I guess time will tell. But you never really know that man, do you? So it'd be interesting. I think he's just the one to take away from that. I, Moving on to the Ultima as well, then we had Ken Klasko, which was tipped up in our handicap video. So we finally got a winner on the board for our anti-post selections. I think everyone and their mum was on Ken Klasko that day. He was into 6-1, and just did it really impressively. Won by 4.5 lengths over Twig in second, and Meeting of the Waters, but back in third, 5 and just under 6 lengths. Third. Now it was a brilliant race, a brilliant ride, a brilliant run. He was up in the box seat where you kind of needed to be, jumped everything like a buck. Just at the end, obviously stumbled on landing at the last, but really didn't look. I would never say looked in danger at all. It was just a very smooth, easy performance. And I mean that's going to open doors. He's clearly a top end handicapper. Whether he's quite to the graded level or whether he's quite up to that graded like grade one company over 3 miles, 3 miles two. I'm talking for a Gold Cup. I wouldn't be sold. I just think he may be a top end handicapper, and I think he would be really interesting. Something like the Coral Gold Cup at Newbury next season. I really think so. It depends what the mark obviously he gets on, but I just think like that's going to be a big galloping track that would suit him down to the ground. Obviously, I think in a big field he's clearly proven himself. He's a really interesting type for that kind of race. Maybe even Grand National in time. He clearly does stay and jumps really, really nicely. It'd be interesting to see him in graded company, obviously an open graded company, just to see where he's at, because obviously Ultimate Winners do have the last few of it a really good track record. Obviously, Corrick Rambler has gone and won the Gold Cup. No, he's going to run in the Gold Cup. Sorry, today has won a national since winning the Ultimate twice, and obviously Fast or Slow has come out on as a two-time Grade One winner, I believe. Um, After running second in the Ultimate. So it's a race that can produce really top end horses. And I think Ken Classico has that class. It's just whether he's quite to that level. I think it'd be interesting to see if he gets tested out in graded company, start off next season. Um, if not, I think it could be interesting in something like a Coral World Cup. I really, really do. I was really, really taken by him. I think Meeting of the Waters ran a good race as well. I think Famous Bridge at Big Price was interesting on the heavy ground. He's a slow boat, definitely, but I think he will. He's gonna definitely going to be focused around the national circuit next season. I think he's definitely that kind of type on heavy ground. Needs a trip, and he'd be interesting. Well, definitely. And then looking towards the champion hurdle. Now, obviously, the premier race of the day is a bit underwhelming. Obviously, 2 to 5 shot. State Man did it well enough, beating Irish Point by a length and a quarter. Um, I was just gutted that Irish Point didn't go for the stairs. I had a few anti-post bets on him for the stairs, and I thought he would have had a really, really great chance. And especially after that run, suggests that he probably would have gone very, very close. It's just obviously same connections, obviously being trainer and owners with Rob Core and Tiapu, so it's hard. I guess it's kind of makes sense. You get prize money, you get second in a champion hurdle and win the stairs is not a bad way to do it. It's just difficult. It's frustrating for me. I thought he would have had a really good chance, but State Man was obviously less impressive than I think most people were expecting him to go win by half the track. I mean, that's not really what State Man does. He's not that kind of horse. He's not like a Constitution Hill in that respect, who just does enough to win most of his races. And it's good that I'm happy that he's been able to pick up a champion hurdler because he definitely deserves it. He's probably the best 2 mile hurdler in Ireland. Sorry, um, if Constitution Hill was in this, he would have blown them apart. I just don't see any angle when anyone could think State Man could go and beat Constitution Hill. And after that, the reason I say that is because Lucia was 3.5 lengths behind with Nick Henderson's 33 to 1. Lucia, I don't think it was an amazing run. I don't think it was an amazing renewal of that race. It's obviously really unfortunate that Constitution Hill was brought out of it. I just I couldn't have State Man next year. I think Constitution Hill, if he gets there in one piece, would just absolutely blow him out of the water. Irish Point, it'll be interesting to see where they go with him now because he is a 6-year-old going 7. So whether they do try his hand at or try the hand at chasing or they stick over hurdles would be interesting. If they were to, I'd really like them to go for stairs next year because they're not going to go win the champion. I think they know that for a fact. Um, Now they've given it a try, but they just have obviously Tipu there, and I think Rockwell confirmed that Tipu was going to stay over hurdles yesterday, so maybe Irish Point may look to go chasing. He doesn't strike me as a massive chasing type, though. He's a bit of a smaller, compact horse, but I guess you can never know until you find out, really. So it'd be an interesting play, maybe State Man at Irish Point, sorry, for the stairs next year potentially. But I think that's just obviously one to play by ear. And as I said, if Constitution was in there, he would have absolutely wiped the floor with them. Now the race after that was obviously the Mares Hurdle when Lossiemouth did it massively impressively on that heavy ground over 2 mile 4, but stepping up and trip, travelled over them, all over them. It was kind of kept a little bit out of the back and just came in on the bridle swinging and never really looked like ever getting beat. I think she's a real player next season in the champion hurdle. I think she'd, if I'm being completely honest, I think Townend will ride her over State Man next year. If she is, it's a hot take, potentially a hot take. I just think she will outclass. She's one of the best mares we've seen in a long time. I think she outclasses State Man. She just will outclass State Man. She'll travel all over him and pick him up, especially with another year being a year older. She's only a 5-year-old. Um, I could really see her doing something or being the biggest threat to Constitution Hill, considering we haven't seen him since December, since Boxing Day. I think she's going to have a great chance at 5 to 1. I think State Man's 7 to 2. She's 5 to 1. I think for me it'd be the other way around. I'd really like Lossie Mouth in this, potentially looking towards next year's Champions Hurdle. I think she could be really something quite special. Um, and as I said, I think Paul may well end up riding her on the day, which is maybe controversial, but I guess it is. We will have to have opinions, don't we? So, yeah, I would definitely be of interest, definitely interested in her for sure. Obviously, I think National Diamond pull, pulled up actually in the end. So in that one, so she ran a little bit disappointingly. So Love Envy, obviously, with the anti-post each way on her, she only came fifth, which is a bit of a shame. But oh, it is what it is, isn't it? She's had a great career and she's off to the Pro now, which will be interesting. But so see some of her progeny on the track in the future. And then we move on to the Boodles. I'm not going to spend much amount of time on this. Lark in the Morning was clearly the plot job of one of the plot jobs at the meeting. Um, did it really well. Obviously, I know connections were concerned about the ground, but he did it really, really well, regardless. And clearly was just the best horse in the race. Um, it's hard to really see where the Boodles type's going to go from here, but I just think, yeah, congratulations. It was it was a great run. Um, I think we had two cracks at each way, Salva, non-runner no bet Salva and Woodhoo. And we didn't get a runner in it, unfortunately. But yeah, Luck in the Morning was much the best horse on the day for that race, definitely. And then the last one we'll focus on is the National Hunt Chase, where we had Salvador Ziggy um, as an each way proposition 8-1. Yeah, the ground just went against us again in this one. It was never, ever going to want that kind of ground, which is a shame. But kind of is what it is. It comes with the territory when you're betting anti-post because you can't really see those kind of things. Sometimes you end up putting up, which is not really surprising. I think on that ground, I didn't have much faith. Corpus Cross won really impressively. Ended up by 17 lengths. Shame that they had well they didn't go for the national, so they went for national chase over Southern Brown Advisory because he's clearly a classy type, and I actually think he is one next season in open company in the potential. He's a potential outlier for a Gold Cup. Um, was the Edmond is a very shrewd trainer. He could even go, move for the national. You never really know where McMahon's will kind of campaign his horses towards, but I think he could be of interest at a big price, potentially Gold Cup down the line. He did that really impressively. I was completely wrong about his jumping. He jumped so much better um, over the longer trip, and he just clearly looks like a top level open company stayer next season. I think he's going to be very interesting. And maybe an outlier for a Gold Cup. I was actually really taken by it. Obviously, I was wrong about Gaelic Roy that day. I was wrong about Corpus Cross. These things happen. I think Corpus Cross could be really interesting next season. Definitely to look at. So that's obviously the wrap up for the Tuesday. Take out of it, I think Slade Steel and Firefox coming out to Supreme are going to be really interesting novice chasers next season. Um, Obviously Gaelic Warrior could throw a spanner in the work for that 2 mile open champion chase division. I think he looked really impressive that day. Uh, on Tuesday, County Glasgow, I think one for Pennantry Gold Cup or a Coral Gold Cup or a Grand National down the line. Definitely just want to note. Um, I would just say Lossiemouth for me is the one that's I think Lossiemouth is going to be taking Stateman's throne in Ireland next season over 2 miles in the hurdling division, and Corbett Cross could well be an outlier for a Gold Cup potentially down the line. So that's the Tuesday kind of wrap up and recap. We're going to move on to the Wednesday in a second. So now moving on to the Wednesday of the Cheltenham Festival, obviously day two, which was kicked off there by in the what is now the Gallagher Novices hurdle with Byron Bingham. That was won as easy as you like by William Monastrey and Ballyburn. I'd said that in any of the previous videos, whatever race he went to, I think he was going to win, and he did. Very convincingly, 13 lengths over Jimmy DeSoy. Never even came really off the bridle. He is a he's a monster, and I think he could be a genuinely a superstar in the making. I think he's a chaser, I would say, more so than a hurdler. Just simply because, obviously, as I mentioned with the first one, Willie Mullins just has a lot of ammunition in those in the champion hurdle. He's not going to go for a stayers hurdle, so I imagine he will go fences, and whichever race he goes to, he will probably be pretty hard to beat. I would suggest and I would think he's going to be campaigned as a staying chaser. As in, I know he's got factor file for the Gold Cup. I think that's in that mould. So I think he'll probably maybe go for, you know, middle distance races moving up to 3 miles. I can see him being that. Maybe a really, he would absolutely dot up in the likes of a Turner locally. If he can obviously jump a fence, he's a point out of a point to point background. So he suggests he would. Um, I think he would end up over 2.5 to 3 miles. I imagine I would think they'd probably go for the Galopin des Champs route personally. I would probably think they would go 2.5 miles, or for the turners, and then moving on to Gold Cup afterwards. I think he's that kind of level of horse. I really, really do. And I think Ruby Walsh made a really good point. They're saying, oh, I could go for the champion hurdle and then try and do the double with the Gold Cup, but he is 6 turning 7, so you may be a bit short of time to do that, because if he's ended up going for a Gold Cup, he probably end up being in 9, which is not ideal when typically a typical profile of a Gold Cup winner is 7 to 8. Even though I know I've tipped up very much to a 9-year-old, I just think each way that was was odd. But I would just think, for me, Ballyburn will be a Turner's or a Brown advisory horse next year, and then move on to a that kind of staying chaser mold after that, and after that as well. Potentially something like a um, King George, and then on to a Gold Cup. I could really see that kind of path being trodden. I think it'd be more the Gallop and the Champs. That's one though, where you'd be likely for the Turners as opposed to what they did with Factor File this season. So yeah, there's not much more to say about it. I don't think anything in behind is massively, really captivating. Atlantic maybe just didn't run quite his race. Needed the Predators Gold. Obviously, the British kind of disappointed in that one as well. But I think Ballybone's going to be a serious superstar in the future for the next 3 or 4 years, really. And then obviously we moved on to the Brown Advisory with Factor File Cruise into hands and heel stuff from Mark Walsh to get him to win over Monty Star by 3 and 3/4 lengths. Stay away favour was really disappointing in that. They came out and said there was an issue with his wind afterwards. He'd scoped 30, which maybe explained it. He just wasn't really travelling after a kind of a full circuit, and you could just tell he was always a little bit behind the bridle when struggling to get on. Which is a shame, but it is what it is. Obviously, that was an Antepost down the toilet. I did say Fansar was probably the most likely winner. I just thought potentially you could take him on maybe over Cheltenham over a longer trip, but he is definitely Gold Cup material for next year. Obviously, Gallop and the Champs going for the two-timer this year. We'll see what he does today, but I guess really what we got to kind of look out for next season is Fatfar will definitely be heading to the Gold Cup. He is a 7-year-old now, obviously, so he's an older type in his prime. I think next season will be his year. I think he will go and win a Gold Cup. I could see him being next season's Gold Cup winner. Really, 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 I really, really do. I think he's class. You could tell he's a proper chaser. Monty Star ran at me in behind, ran better than I thought he probably would. Ooh, maybe that's potentially flattered a little bit by the underperformance of Tayway Faye, but he's again probably staying chaser for the future. And then obviously you got the Lutz Coral Cup, which is a Langadan plot job. Said it. It's pretty shocking what the handicap has done. But look, what I will say is, somebody from England and the UK, we needed a winner. So well done, Dan Harris Skelton, for getting it sorted out. It may not be necessarily the most ethical or the fairest way to do it, but hey, we got a winner on the board. That's all that matters. And um, yeah, whether I was on it, I wasn't even on him. It's not something that's great. And you get a lot of small trainers probably get punished, something like that. They whereas the Skeletons going to get lauded around as shrewds. Not sure how I feel about it, but it's one of those, isn't it? At least UK got a winner on the board. That's really all I can say. They had then the champion chase afterwards, which obviously with John Bond pulling out on the day and El Fabiolo falling at, I think it was the fifth or sixth. Um, Cut up massively. Obviously, Captain Guinness finally got his Grade One glory after I think it was 12 or 13 attempts, and beating Gentleman to Made by 1.5 lengths. What is amazing is that if John Bond was probably kept in the race, I know how badly the Kentons are running. You've got to imagine he would have won. You really do if El Fabiolo had fallen. Just with how you wouldn't necessarily think Captain Guinness or Gentleman to Me would have beaten John Bon on even 80% form. Even if Dino Blue had been put in here, obviously she's in the mares, she would have probably won that by absolutely laps. But it is what it is. I had said in the preview show I thought John Bon potentially was a play on the day, and he was up to 5-1. That's probably because he can get pulled out. I was just about to back him, and then I saw the news he'd been pulled out. If he'd stayed in, he would have definitely won that. But hey, ho, it is what it is. That is the game. And I did say Alfabio jumping in the previous videos was a bit could be subject to him making a mistake. And it turned out to be true. Everyone said no, it's not the case. It is the case. He doesn't jump them with that much fluency, especially over 2 miles. He could probably get caught out if you get into a bad rhythm. He guessed it, and he paid the price, which is a champion chase victory. But next season's 2 mile chases will be really interesting. Obviously, with Gaelic Warrior thrown into the mix now. Hopefully, John Bond back in full fitness. There'll be a few coming up through the ranks from maybe Novice Chase division. I don't really it's only going to be clearly Warrior, but it still adds an interesting element to it. And we'll see maybe what Donna Blue does today in the Mares Chase. If she's really, really, really impressive, she may come into the picture as well. That's definitely one to look into next year. And then obviously we had the Grand Annual, which is a 2 mile handicap chase, which that was just because the cross country had been abandoned, unfortunately, which is won by Unexpected Party in the Skeletons again. They're in flying form. Two on Wednesday, two on Thursday. We'll see what they can do today. Um, I always thought Unexpected Party had a big race like this in him. I didn't think it would be at the Cheltenham Festival. I thought it was just going to be a big handicap 2 mile chase, but he's obviously came to hand at the right time and was not one that I would have backed. I'd mentioned Liberty Hunter in the preview video. I thought he ran a really race in second. I also mentioned Safarur at 20 to 1. Ended up going fourth off 4 to 1 Fav for Gordon Elliott. Jack Kennedy was fourth, which was a place in that race, so that helped for us. But we were close. It was a good mention, and kind of his. I think just that kind of day and that kind of week for Gordon Elliott, where he was just banging on the door, we're not quite getting there. I think Safaras, when I looked at the run, just kept out the back quite a lot. I thought he had to make up quite a lot of ground when he turning up to the top of the hill. I think he just didn't quite hit the second last, which kind of scuppered his chances when he was moving up the field. But maybe if he was just, I felt if he was brought just a little bit closer, he may have had a better chance. But I don't think anyone's really going to get towards the winner really aggressively. And fair play to the Scoutons, they landed two big touches on the Tuesday on the Wednesday, sorry. And then we'll just round up with the bumper. Obviously, I'd mentioned Jean Tudoriz, who was ended up being third, ran really well, went off 3 to 1 Fav. I think the top three in this are going to be really, really exciting novice hurdlers and chasers down the line. Talented, the reason Romeo and Coolio are staying chasers in the making. Jasmine DeVoe looked a little bit more speedy, I'd say, because I think it was purely it wasn't the staying on that won it for her. I think it just was a turn of foot at the end. One of him, sorry, I think it was turn of foot, and I think he's really interesting in maybe a Supreme next year. Definitely, like Cheltenham, like the Hill, he's definitely one to take into account for the herd for a team or hurdle division. I think the novices division, but I think Jalan Dideriz and Remy Coolio are definitely going to be stepped up and trip and chases in the next 2 or 3 years. They're really really interesting. Um, Obviously the British were a little bit disappointing in this. I think well first on home was eighth Royal Infantry for Dan and Harry Skelton. Um, it's not ideal, is it, really, for us? But I think the front three are really, really nice types. I would also give a mention to um, the Sounds Victorious and Fishery Lane because for Willie Mullins, they both ran really solid races. One was at fourth and sixth, and they just wanted to potentially keep on because they stayed again on into the final third. And I think for me, they are again in the next 2 or 3 years going to be quite interesting, maybe staying on chases as well. So I would just say for the Tuesday is a bit of a quiet day, but I think we saw an absolute superstar with Ballyburn. Sorry, with the Wednesday with Ballyburn, and yeah, I think he's going to be a serious start next year in Novice Company, and then obviously Gold Cup probably in the year after that. So um, we'll move on to the Wednesdays. Sorry, from Wednesday's action into Thursday in just a second. So back now with the action from the third day of the Cheltenham Festival, which was obviously the Thursday, kicking off with the Turners Novices Chase, the 2 mile, 2.5 mile. Grade one, very dawning romp home in this with Ginny's Destiny up front. Yeah, as I said in the last part, Dan and Harry Skelton were on fire on the Wednesday. That rolled over into the Thursday. Did it really, really impressively. Obviously, stayed up with the pace with Ginny's Destiny and Jello, who were leading the way, and then just sort of slipped in behind that and just left everything else for dead. Really, I was really, really, really impressed with it. Ginny Destiny and Grey Dawning pulled away from the rest of them. Yeah, Facile Vega was a big disappointment in behind. Diroko was just, you could tell, needed the run a little bit. And Colonel Harry actually went well for us in a bigger price as well. So he came sixth, but Jello, obviously, we mentioned as well as one of our Antepost. Looked for this about 40, I think it was 40 to 1. Ran into third, which is really, really nice. Grey Dawning did it really impressively, and I genuinely believe this is a top grade one 3 mile chaser. I really do think so. I think one that clearly has enough speed to be competitive over 2.5 miles, but just stays all day and jumped so much better that day than he has done before. See, when he was a bit scruffy at Cheltenham's, when he lost to James Esney in when was that? that was in December time, and then I went to Warwick in the King. He went to Warwick when he beat Broadway Boy and Apple away. Again, he was a bit when he was left alone in front in that race. He was very um, didn't make a very great shape over the last two, should we say? He was a lot more neat and tidy today, or should I say yesterday? He was his jumping has definitely come on a long way, and it will obviously continue to do so. He's still fairly progressive, and at a young horse, he's only had five chase starts. I really do see him being a proper Grade One level horse next year. I would say a Betfair hurdle could be really up his street. You know, it's a staying track like Haydock, then probably moving on to I think it'd be really interesting in a King George, or maybe not a King George, more so probably the Gold Cup. He's only 12th one for that, so it's a bit short really this time considering it's not even been yet this year. I think that's crazy, but I could see him doing like a Betfair hurdle kind of that mold of horse. I really like him. Um, and I think he's definitely one to look into next season for sure to follow. Ginny's Destiny, I think, is going to be going for the Ryanair probably next year. Is definitely a 2.5 miler. Jello ran really admirably as well, but maybe he's not quite up to that level. I just think Great Dawning could well be a serious Grade One horse in the UK, and I think for me, he's my bet for the Betfair chase already. Um, but then obviously he rolled into Protectorat winning. I'll skip the Pretend because that was an absolute crapshoot. But we unfortunately had White Rhino pulled out in that, which was frustrating. Non-runner no bet though. Yeah, for us at 14 to 1, he's actually ended up going to Uttoxeter on Saturday. So I think I might have a look at him now, 7 to 1 when I last checked that in that race, which is a shame for us considering I think he would have really liked the heavy or the soft heavy ground, obviously at Cheltenham as well. But hey, it is what it is. Connection decided to swerve and go for a different direction. Protectorate obviously went on to run the Rhino Chase really impressively for Envoy Allen. Conflated was back in third, so Stage Star um, was fifth, Capitano fourth. I don't think we had a massive hit in it. We had I'd mentioned Hitman, who ran a very good race as well, and I'd mentioned Banbridge as well, obviously. But I was surprised they ran him on that ground. Really was. Fair play for them to run him, but you could clearly say he just doesn't want that ground at all. That was really the only reason for his bad performance. Protectorat was a game winner on the day, was their best horse in the race. You'd have to say stayed on really impressively. I don't know how I missed that really. When looking at it, he clearly stays and loves Cheltenham, and that's really what it was that kicked him away from Envoy Allen. I think there's not much more you can write into that. It's going to be an interesting renewal next year, I think, right now, because Envoy Allen's turning is 10, turning 11, Protectorat's 9, turning 10. Um, you've not really got conflated is 10, turning 11 as well. Yeah, so you've not really got a superstar anymore there. You know, stage star is 8, 10, 9. He could run a fairly big race, but I think that's going to be wide open next season. It really is, and it's definitely going to be an interesting market to kind of see what kind of popped up over the course of the season, sort of see where they could go. As I said, I think Ginny's definitely already running that. Um, may have a good chance. I guess we'll just see what's coming out of the novice company. Maybe the likes. I'm just kind of looking through. I could see potentially like I think Tom's who stayed on really well in the Arkle potentially doing something interesting there, like a fan 50 maybe. I don't know. It'd be really interesting. It's an interesting kind of um, an interesting market to look at for next year. 100%. There's not really clear one at the moment that's coming out. That's jumping off the page, but there's a lot of old boys are moving on from that, so it'd be interesting to see what kind of fresh blood they're bringing from the Novice company over 2.5 miles. And then obviously the race after that was the Stayers Hurdle, where Tipu ran out. I'd say a really impressive winner. I was crabby of his chances, obviously having not won last year. He righted that wrong this season. It was a bit of a it's obviously a very poor renewal of the Stayers, and I just yeah, not much more to say. He should have won the race, and he did. So that's all you can really say. He's always clearly a very good horse, and I know they're going to keep him for probably next year, which is a shame because um, I, I think there's it's just hard to see who's going there, for next season as well. If Yeah, it's hard to see who's kind of going there. If Irish Point was to go there, I think he'd have a really good chance next season. But the same connections, it's just going to be difficult really to do. I think because Tipu's only 7 going on 8, he's definitely probably going to go win this again. I'd say. Um, it's just hard to see anything else in behind that's really going to challenge him. Um, which is a bit of a shame because it's a bit of a stale division, really. Even with the old boys, it is interesting in the UK because you get a lot of those older horses, but a lot of them are going to retire. Like Paisley Park's now retired, so maybe Cranbo will be mopping up some of the spoils on that, or maybe you'll see something coming out of the Bartlett, or something. It's hard to really see, isn't it? I don't know. I don't really know. It's just a tough kind of division as a whole to get a handle on. But I think next season too, we're going to go there with another massive chance because they're going to keep Arkle away from him most likely, which is a bit of a shame. But hey, it is what it is, isn't it? Um, and then obviously we moved on to I'll leave the plate behind. Shaking my Harry was really really good for Ben Pauling and Ben Jones, but the Mayor's Novice Hurdle was end of the day, but one we mentioned was Golden Ace, which is obviously good for us. I was a bit crabby on JD Cruzy and Brighter Days Ahead, just as I thought Brighter Days Ahead was all talking. JD Cruzy's form actually wasn't all that cracked up to be. Obviously, ended up putting up Buzzer Enos. She unfortunately got pulled out on the day with a pulled muscle, which is a real shame because I think she would have won that. It turned into, if she was running, it turned into a race that basically she would have wanted. Basically, called round sprint finish, and she would have, I think, that's Ineos would have beaten Golden Ace into second, sorry, into first, and Golden Ace would have been second. I think that's really how that race would have played out if she was there. Unfortunately, that is the name of the game. But Golden Ace was there to pick up the spoils and did so really, really well for Jeremy Scott. And she did really nice. She's a really nice mare, 100% over 2 miles. It's hard to see necessarily where she may go, whether she step up and trips the mare's hurdle. Or maybe compete in open company as well. She clearly has a lot of speed. She's a massive speed ball. So it'd be interesting to see where they compete her. I really think she is a 2 miler though, which is the issue, and whether she goes for that champion medals and maybe not to quite that level. I don't think. I think Brighton had obviously come on a lot. She was very keen in the race, and um, that's I think why Jack couldn't necessarily go off the front, even though he probably should have. You would have suggested not to, and I've ridden up the horses to that anywhere near that level. But she didn't settle well enough probably for him to go off in front and to set the tempo because it was just a crawl round and then a sprint finish. And considering Bright Days Ahead is a bona fide stayer, whereas Golden Ace is a bit of a more of a speedball. It just played into her hands a lot better. I think Bright Days Ahead could have just done with bolting out in front and just setting her own tempos and fractions and then just staying on at the end. But I think she's got a bright future as well. And unfortunately, JD Cruz, she just got caught up in, I think it was the second last. She was very short room after the second last and just had to kind of switch back into the inside and was just always never really getting contention after that. But not taking nothing away from the winner, she's clearly, I think she's just a massive speedball. She has a flat pedigree as well. I just think over 2 miles, she's lethal in Mare's company, but it's difficult to see with the Mare's kind of schedule where she's going to go from there, really. Whether she competes in open Grade 1 company over 2 miles in the UK, I guess we'll see. And I'll just leave the Martin Pipes in there. Obviously, I know the way you're thinking. One very convincing for JP McManus and Gavin Cromwell was just by far the best horse in the race and carried top weight in that and did it really impressively for Derek Connor as well. So not really much more I'll mention on that one. But that's everything for the Thursday. Just to kind of summarise, I really think Grade Dawning is a real deal for the UK for the next kind of season. I think in all those open Grade 1s, 3 miles, 3 mile open Grade 1s. He's going to be very difficult to pin back, and I think he could be a real live wire for a Gold Cup next season. That Ryanair market is just wide open for next season now. Protector will probably go there again, but he'll be 9 going 10, so it's just going to be wide open. There's a lot of old boys that can be moving on, and we'll see really what the novice company or some of the novice chasers coming up will look like. Chico, I think, just has his way in the stairs out of division now for the next year or two. There's nothing really coming in behind. I don't think our point's going to go there. So just because of the same connection, I think they maybe try chasing with him. Katipu is just going to be difficult to beat 7 going 8. So he's still probably got another year or two in his prime as well. So he could even pick up another 2 or 3 if he really really wanted to. And obviously Golden Ace, I think, is just an absolute speedball. I think JD Grugy and Bright Desert have a big future in front of them, but probably for up and trip, maybe for a mare's hurdle for those two, or even an open company for Bright Desert, the way they talked about it. But I just think purely and simply, Golden Ace was just a lot quicker on the day, and I think over 2 miles she could be interesting in a few Grade Ones coming up next season. Whether she's quite to that level, we'll see. But I guess you got lots of Low dropping away. Maybe that opens the door a little bit for her to kind of maybe stand for authority. And it'd be interesting to see whether they go with Dissect else as well afterwards. So I appreciate everyone's time to watch there. And that's going to be everything for Thursday. As I said, I'll be in different clothes when you see me in the next part of the video, which is going to be reviewing Fridays and then putting up some way too early Cheltenham Antepost for next season. So appreciate that. We'll be there in a bit. So as promised, we are back in different clothes just to review Friday's action from the Cheltenham Festival 2024. As I said, I recorded the first part of the video on the Friday morning before Friday's events unfurled at Cheltenham, obviously. It was a pre-Gold Cup, pre-well up in the Albert Parlour, which is obviously a very nice touch for ourselves on the channel. So as I said, we're in different clothes in a different place. It's been a busy a few days over the weekend. We're going to get the last part up of the video sorted for you guys now. So as I said, we're going to jump straight into the talking points really from Friday, which was the first race being the Triumph Hurdle. Masborough uh, stamped or not stamped as authority. I'd say he just introduced himself to the stage as being potentially a top performer in the future for Willie Mullins and JP McManus. Obviously, won the Triumph on pretty bottomless ground with ease. Obviously, went well clear with pulled very well clear with Cargis in second, who I'd mentioned on the show was my pick of the day. I just thought she's a little bit more streetwise and a little bit more of a Triumph type. Maverick looks obviously like a serious chasing type in the future, and definitely a Gold Cup horse, probably in 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years. The reason I say that is because he is only four, and I think people are putting up for these novice chasers next year. He would only be five at that point, and as we've seen this year with like the likes of Lossiemouth, Willie Muns will probably take it fairly slow next year for him. Obviously, 4 to 5 is a difficult year for them. This isn't like a Fact to File case where Fact to File was running in bumpers age 7. He's a young horse. Will take a lot of time to develop. I think you probably see him over hurdles next year. Very maybe lightly campaigned, so he can grow into his bigger frame. And then maybe when he's turning 5 to 6, that's when they'll go novice company and then open company 6 to 7. So I think it's probably going to be maybe 3 years until he's out into that Gold Cup contention, but I just think he's definitely going to be biding his time, especially with the JP Manis having Fact to File in the Gold Cup picture at the moment. There's no need to rush him, and I just think he's all class. Obviously, Kogi's ran a brilliant race for Willie Mullins as well. Kenny Alexander has another really nice mare there. I think she's going to be a little bit potentially nicer than the likes of a Gala Marceau, who came out of the race last year for the same connections. Be interesting to see where she goes next year. I could see them taking it very slowly with her and maybe building their way up into sort of Mayor's Novice Company not Mayor's Novice Company, sorry, into the Mayor's Hurdle picture that year because I think she will probably stay a little bit further. She cut through the heavy ground really nicely at the hill and just got done by a bigger staying sort of Madra. Salva for ourselves in Antepost, each way selection 16 to 1 came in each way for us at 30. Ran a brilliant race. Obviously, was really helped out by the ground and was best of the British really in that respect. It was a nice pick for us, a little decent each way kind of profit on that one. So we were happy with that. And I think he's a nice horse for the future, definitely. Again, I always think it's best with these juveniles though is they're going to be hopefully minded for at least a year or two, so they can properly develop into them into themselves, and then they'll come out in a good company and be a bit more competitive, or come on to novice chasers and be a bit more competitive down the future. Because when they've rushed, they typically can kind of get ruined and they peak too early. So it'll be interesting to see what the Moors do with him. He clearly really nice prospect for them as well. So it's a very good Triumph third. Obviously, it had the kind of factor of the ground um, to kind of deal with on the Friday. Obviously, we were absolutely hosing it down the night before, turning the hurdles course as heavy ground, and then the chase course soft to heavy. The next race after that was the was the county hurdle. Obviously, we had Kingsfield, who was a tip on the channel. Unfortunately, didn't run any kind of race. Michael O'Leary had said literally just before the off, he said that the ground had gone against him, pretty much scuppered their chances, which it looked like it did. He just sort of travelled into it fairly nicely, swinging in, obviously coming off the rail, and then just never found anything for any kind of pressure. Coming up the hill, so I think it's just really the ground. Unfortunately, got as absurd. It was a really nice winner, and it was just a really great horse for connections. Obviously, I thought he was going to be done by the ground, and he proved me completely wrong. Being a flat horse, winning the E-Ball, winning a Melbourne Cup, and now he's going to win a county hurdle. It's an amazing feat of training from Willie Mullins and very aggressive campaigning from connections, which is really good to see. It'd be interesting to see him going into flat season as well now. Um, Being this is more coming into his time of year, so I was very impressive. I was definitely very impressed by Absurd and the ride by Paul Sannon was world class. Obviously, cutting through the field from basically last to first. It was textbook stuff. So it was you can't really fault it at all. Even though we had a bit of a disappointment there, unfortunately. And then obviously the Albala, which was for us a huge race. Obviously we had Stella Story getting up on the line to beat the Jukebox Man, 33-1. Got as an SP for a winner for ourselves, and see was a very nice feeling. It was only really every 2 horse race they kind of got up in front. Jukebox Man got an absolutely freebie up front, and he loves the heavy ground. I've seen him at Fossland a few times over heavy ground. He relishes that. He likes to bolt off the front and getting it there, and giving him an easy lead was definitely a mistake from the field. Even though he wasn't guaranteed to stay, I just knew with the ground and setting his own fractions, Kinderwood was really good on him until the last. He just kind of sat off and slightly just was a bit too cautious over it, which may have cost him the length or that ended up being ahead that he lost by going up the hill. I think Stella Story is a hardcore stayer, whereas Jukebox Man a little bit more classy type, a bit more speedy. And I think he just sort of obviously you could see his head going up a little bit up the hill. We got up and it was a huge one for us. So it'll be interesting to see both those in going chasing next year. I'm a really big fan of Jukebox Man as well, actually. Hopefully they mind him and he can make a seriously nice chasing prospect for Harry Redknapp and Ben Pauling. But yes, the story did a job nicely, and he fought for a chase. He was fought for a big fee as well. I think he fought around 400 grand. Um, he will be a nice chaser, definitely staying on chaser. Um, in the coming years, so definitely one to watch out for from the Bartlett. And then obviously the Gold Cup, which no really surprise, Gallop in the Shomps romped home in very convincingly. I obviously backed, tipped up Bregman's game each way just because I thought it was a little bit too big. And I think he ran incredibly. I don't think he wanted the ground at all. But he came fifth. Unfortunately, missed out on a place. You know, they had the extra places, the 4 places. We missed out on a place by 1 horse, which is unfortunate. By 1 place, but that is what it is. Yeah, Dalvin Shops is a beast, and he's probably the best horse that Willie Mullins has maybe ever trained from a chasing perspective. Willie Mullins, greatest ever chaser, one of bona fide superstar all-time legend horses going down with the likes of Quarto Star Denman. He is a top tier 3 mile chaser, or staying chaser. He's stamped with authority on the field. He could never really went. Couldn't got any easier really for him. He just travelled through the race beautifully and then picked it up on the home term and just powered away up the hill. It was pretty routine stuff, and he looked unbelievable in that. It'll be interesting to see. He's fairly young. He's only an 8 year old now, so the 8 going 9 definitely has probably one more crack in the tank. Um, for potentially going for a hat trick at Gold Cups would be which would be a serious feat to do. He looked remarkably aggressive and take that away from him. I thought Jerry Colon went really well in second, back to somewhere near his kind of best form. Be interesting to see maybe if they probably go Gold Cup next year as well. Um, I think when they came out today and said they won't go to 22 with him, they probably will leave. They may leave Spring Targets alone and just head him, send him off to the paddock this year and get a kind of summer of grass on him, and then he'll come back into training, all guns blazing for a Gold Cup. So it'd be interesting to see what he can develop, because obviously he's a sort of fairly young horse, fairly inexperienced over fences, and he was only 3.5 lengths down on that. He didn't really get a run. He got kind of hampered quite badly by the loose horse, and the Galopan um, did as well, but it wasn't as bad. I think Kierkegaard had to switch inside and it cost him a length or two. I'm not saying he was ever going to win, but it just maybe could have got a little bit closer, which be interesting to see for next year as well. And the other one was obviously, I think the banker of the National now, Scott Rambler. He ran unbelievably. It was ran. There was one thing I think people maybe overstating of how good a run it was for him. He was there simply to pick up the places. He was ridden out the back and was ridden to stay on to pick up places, which is fair enough. Pick up place prize money, Gold Cup, and no problem at all. But he wasn't put into the race to win it, whereas like a Brave Man's Game or a La Home Presse was least aimed or was ridden in the race, and they were trying to go win the race. Whereas Corey Ramblin was just aimed to pick up third place, basically. So people maybe read into a little bit more, but he's still a £7-8 better performance than he's ever been in before, probably on the ratings. So I think now, what 11 stone 2 for a Grand National, he's an absolute banker. He's 7-1 now. I wouldn't put anyone off. I'm a little snivel on that already. Um, but yeah, that would just be my 2 cents on that. And then obviously we moved on to the Mares Chase towards the end, because I won't go into Fox Hunters as well. It was a good win for England that day, or the UK that day. But Limerick Lace got the better of Dano Blue in the Mares Chase. Just stayed on a little bit stronger, I think, on heavy ground as well. Dino Blue's pace was slightly dampened by the ground. It was obviously raining at the time as well, so it definitely kind of softened up even further. It was just a bit of a hardcore stayer there being Limerick Lace. Got the better of him, but yeah, JP Manus won too. You can't really complain about that. And then obviously in the Martin Pipe at the end of the day, the better days ahead, got the better of what unfortunately one of my mentions, which was Watford Whispers and also Keely Bourbon. Again, stayed on really strong at the hill. Did a really nice with Gordon Elliott, and could be a really interesting site for next year going chasing as well because he's a thought to be a chaser like Stellar Stories as well. So a really great day's racing. We had a really good winner and some really interesting future prospects that come out of those. I really think there's going to be a few to look into being Mashborough, Cargeese. I think Salva would be nice in the future as well. I do really like the look of Stellar Story and Duke of Man of Fences. Obviously, Galloping the Champs as a superstar. And then obviously, I think best days ahead. And all those three, Watchful Whispers and Guido Bourbon, take out the Martin Pipe. There's a few to put in the notebook for the future. So definitely a brilliant day's racing. And as I said, on to our way too early anti-post picks. So for me, I mean, I've got a few here that I think are going to be quite interesting. Now, the first one, it's going to be obvious to mention, but Constitution Hill was 2-1 for a champion hurdle. And for me, that's too big. You could stick him in basically any kind of multiple you have. I think he absolutely balls up, and obviously probably going to go off significantly shorter on the day. Even with a lot of Lossiemouth in there, she could be really interesting. I wouldn't have the performance of State Man didn't really set the word light for myself. I don't think he's ever going to really challenge Constitution Hill. Maybe Lossiemouth would do a little bit of a better go, but I still just don't think anything would touch him. I think 2-1, you can stick him in basically any athlete you have, any multiple you can have, anti-pose wise for the Cheltenham Festival when he's pretty much banker 2-1. So obviously that's kind of stating the obvious. The other one I really like is Ballyburn for the Turners, 7-2. He's 7-2 for both all novice chases. Um, I think he'll end up going to the Turners. I can see him being campaigned as a obviously uh, as a staying chaser for the future. Obviously, we never really know what he mans what he'll end up doing. I just think he's got a little bit too much ammunition, or he doesn't necessarily need to have Ballyburn in the champion hurdle when he's going to have Lossiemouth in there, and State Man as well. So I feel as if they'll turn Ballyburn going chasing because he is 6, going 7. And if he was going to novice company, I don't think he's going to stay over 2 miles. I think they'll step him up as if he's going chasing, he's going to go for the Gold Cup for me. Um, and obviously, he did it with Gallop on the Champs. We went for the Turners. They were having an hour about Factor File. I think Factor File's was pushed up because of the likes of a Fasol Vega going for Turners. But I just think for me, I would imagine they'd take potentially Gallop and the Champs route with Ballyburn. I think he's that kind of horse. I could see him going for the Turners over any other novice chase, being the Arkle um, or or the Brown Advisory. I think I just see it. I could just see it. I think he would be of that Gallipander shot mold where if he goes to this, I think he's just going to blow everything away. I think 7-2, not a great price this early on, but you got to take what you can, and I think he'd be an absolute banker wherever he goes. Really, I think he's really going to suit his fence as well. By the way, he jumps hurdles, and then I know I did mention that Orange Point wasn't going to go to the stayers. He is 12-1 for that. It, it would be a speculative one, a very speculative bet. But for me, the 12-1's a little bit overpriced for if he were to actually go there. I think he'd definitely challenge Tipu a little bit better than anything else in the field would. And Gordon Elliott has come out today and said that he is a stayer. He needs a further trip, and I think he'll go to Aintree as well for the Aintree header. I think he'll bolt up in that. I think he will beat Bollinger, and he's probably going to then shorten for anything else. So I think 12-1 for the stayers for me is where he will end up landing. I can't see him running in the champion again, considering the firepower that's already going to be there next year with lots of Constitution Hill, State Man, and then Lossiemouth, obviously. Then his only option, really, from a Grade One perspective of the hurdles, is the stayers, and I just have a feeling he's going to stay with hurdles. He just seems to me like a hurdler, not necessarily a chasing type. And at 12-1, I really could see him causing deeper issues if he were to go. Obviously, it's exactly the same connection, so it may not be the case. It'd be speculative that, but at 12-1, I think he's a too big a price to ignore for me personally. And then these are going to be my main four initially. So obviously, I've got the three there that I've kind of put away as Ballyburn, Cornhill, and Irish Point. these are the more interesting ones. Now, the first one I'm going to mention is very dawning. As I said, I was really taken by his performance in the Turners. Harry and Downsky come out and said he has got the stamina for 3 miles. That's where they're going to campaign him to be a top level Gold Cup horse in the future. So I think at 12 to 1 for the Gold Cup at the moment, he is a play. I think I would personally, I'm gonna follow him all the way. I think he probably will end up being for a Betfair chase. I could see that. Um, I don't necessarily see him going for King George then afterwards, but something around then. I could just see him being campaigned as the Gold Cup horse now that Petra is going to probably stay at the Ryanair trip. They don't really have anything coming through apart from him. I just think, yes, obviously Gallop on the Shop was going for the three-timer. Yes, there's the likes of Factifile and probably LSA France or LSA France in the race. But I just think Great Awning's a little bit classy. I mean, it's very unexposed over chases over the fences as well. I think he's only ran 5 times. He's gonna definitely benefit from having an extra year experience. I just think he's still very raw and learning on the job, and you can see that he improved massively in the jumping department of the Turners. And I just think he's going to stay all day. And now you know he loves Cheltenham. You could just see him running a really big race in the Gold Cup. Whether it's this year or a few years down the line, I don't know. Maybe we're jumping the gun a little bit, but I just think 12 to 1 for me at the moment with the market the way it is, he would be my pick for the Gold Cup for next year. I was super taken by him, and I'm probably going to follow him wherever he goes next year. I think he's going to be really exciting. And then the other one I'm going to mention before we jump into kind of Novice company is I think Tasa Enos for a mare's hurdle at 16 to 1 is a really interesting poke. The reason I would say this is I don't think they're going to campaign her as a champion hurdle horse just because of the depth of the champion hurdle this year. I don't think they'll probably go chasing with her either. Um, it would just be it would just be an inkling of mine. I think she's doesn't jump hasn't jumped the hurdle well enough to suggest she's going to be at the scope for a chaser to make into a really solid chase. And I just think uh, the options that they're going to have for the O'Brien, Fogel O'Brien's going to have is probably the most likely race they're going to win is a mare's hurdle. Whether because obviously there's no mare's novice chase, is there? So she'd have to go into novice company. I think he really wants to have a festival winner. She's probably his best shot at it. Um, it's not like I don't think she'd win an Arkle. I don't think she'd win a Turners or Brown Advisory. And then obviously she has to step into opening company then in hurdles, which would either be the stayers or the champion. She's not going to go for the stayers hurdle. And I think the champion hurdle is just too deep for her to for Fergus Brian to really think that he can get stuck into that. Considering this is a man that kept her away from graded company all season long this year to avoid a £5 penalty for the mare's novice hurdle. So I think he would see what I would see in respect to the options in front of him. The most likely race he's going to win is something like a mare's hurdle. And I just think it's 16 to 1. She's an interesting poke because I think she'll go to Aintree and blow them away in whatever race they end up going for. It would depend, wouldn't it? I guess on what race they went to. But I just see her her putting in a superstar performance at Aintree, and then at that point she's going to be significantly short for any race as well. I just have a feeling that race he end up most likely going towards at the festival for next year will probably be a mare's hurdle, even though she may not guarantee stay. I think 16 to 1 if she does, and if she was putting a mass performance in Aintree like I think she will, is too big a price for me. And I'd be taking that every day at the moment just for an interesting long term bet for the future. And the other two now are a little bit more punchy, not even punchy, I'd say, but they're in novice races. So the first one we're going to go for is Impaire Passe, 20 to 1 for an Arkle. I think is a huge play. Obviously, they kept them over hurdles this year after you absolutely blew the Ballymore away last year, beat Gaelic Warrior by half the track. See what Gaelic Warrior went on to do this year. Obviously, Cheltenham and obviously in Limerick as well. He's an absolute monster. And then Ferry Pass was that much better than him going into as a novice as a hurdler. So I I just think they're obviously going to send him chasing this because he's been a bit disappointing. But realistically, when you look at his results, he's lost to a Stayers hurdle winner in Tipu in Hatton's Grace, and then he stepped down and lost to a champion hurdle winner, State Man twice. and he's come second in everything in one of those races. For me, he's not been massively disappointing. It's just that you potentially thought this thing was an absolute aeroplane and potentially going to challenge Constitutional. Maybe didn't quite work out some over hurdles this year. He is still only six. I think they'll definitely send him over fences next year. And for me, I can just see I don't see a world where he's a staying chaser. I think they'll, in my logic, they're going to send Ballyburn to the Turners. He may be their best shot at the Arkle next year. If he can jump a fence, which I think he probably can. I would. He looked like an athletic enough and scopy enough horse to do that. I just can see him being a 2 mile pick for Willie next year at 20 to 1. He's getting a little bit under the radar because he missed Cheltenham, I think. And I'm just looking at the market now for the Arkle next year. You've got Ballyburn heads it. Slade Steel 8 to 1. I don't think Slade Steel will stay at 2 miles over fences. I see them doing kind of a very similar campaign to what Ballyburn will get. Gino 8 to 1. Cool going five. I couldn't have it. It's a tough season. I hope they wrap him away. Same with Mashborough as well. I think they're going to wrap them both away. And then you've got the mystical power, Firefox. I think Firefox is again in that Slade Steel Ballyburn mile. He's going to go up and trip. And Tully Hill, I can just see for me Impaire Passe jumping events better than mystical power. And at 20 to 1, I think he's just a really interesting boat for an Arkle because you can see really the top one, two, three, four, maybe five, top five of the six, the top five in the market are maybe for me, from what I'm looking at, not going to go for that race. So it would just be an interesting poke at 20 to 1. And then my final way too early pick for the Cheltenham Festival, which is a bit of a shot in the dark here, potentially, is I really like Romeo Coolio for the Supreme. He's 12 to 1. I just think he obviously just. I think typically speaking, bump horses are stayers, and in the future, and I think he definitely is put in that mould. You need a stayer to win the Supreme most of the time, and he travelled into the bumper like the best horse in the race, and then just got headed and then stayed on again afterwards up the hill by obviously got headed by Jonathan Devoe and then stayed on afterwards. I just think he's going to make him to a serious horse. I really, really do. I know he was basically the hype horse of the season, but he kind of lived up to it actually in the end. It was a bit disappointing, unfortunately, in his first bumper and his racecourse debut. But that champion bumper run was a serious effort, considering that was his second run under rules. I really, really was blown away by that. And I can just see him being a big old challenger in a Supreme. I think he's going to be fine over hurdles. He's a point-to-point winner, so he's had schooling over fences and hurdles before. And I can just see potentially him being a bit of a superstar next season. I really, really do think he's got that level. He's that kind of horse that can go all the way. Um, Obviously, it's hard to pick out novices this year, especially novice hurdlers, because there's going to be a lot that probably haven't even heard of yet and haven't even made a racial debut that are going to come out and be very impressive. But I can just see Romeo Coolio at the moment for me, 12 to 1 for a Supreme, just interests me a lot, and I'm happy to roll the dice and run the risk. And I can just see I'm going to ride the bandwagon all summer long and then ride it all the way through the season. So hopefully him for the Supreme 12 to 1 will be a good give poke. So the main ones obviously for the Way Too Early series, we're going to have Very Part of the Arkle 20 to 1. That's like Enos with the Mare's Hurdle at 16 to 1. Grey Dawning 12 to 1 for the Gold Cup. Romeo Coolio 12 to 1 for the Supreme. And I think Irish Point, I know as much as I said he's probably not going to go here, just because if he was, I'd kick myself to not have the price 12 to 1 for the Stayers. And then I think Ballyburn for the Turners 7 to 2. And Con Hill, chuck him in every single ACCA or multiple you're going to have leading up to the festival. He's 2 to 1 at the moment for the champion. I think that's a great price. But that's everything from me there, guys. I appreciate if you watch all the way through, spending the time and watching with me. If you have any Way Too Early thoughts for next year's festival, please put them down in the comments. I'll be happy to discuss them. Um, yeah, please let me know what your performance of the festivals as well, or maybe if you have any kind of strong opinions on the last kind of 4 days, what you thought really kind of caught your eye. As I said, if you really did enjoy the content, like and subscribe to the channel. It does really help us out, and I'll catch you very soon again in our next video, which is probably going to be looking towards the flat season, which may alienate some people, but we are going to do it. So appreciate everyone's time, and I'll catch you in a bit.